Thank you for the raid, Nth Dimensional, and Rubzarbuzen. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, which is EVE Online. Robzin. That'll work.
Bring on the wrecking machine.
Greetings, fellow Imperians. I am Ashterothi. That's a good way to start things. I was like, at the last second, I was like, this camera angle will be fine. Nope, wasn't quite. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine here. All fine. It's all right. I don't have very much as far as visuals to show off right now anyway, so. Mr. Separum, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, GTO Online. So, for the record, before we get too deep into this, I am going to unmute my desktop just in case. But I have no idea what this is, right? Like, I've been giving you guys episodes, and like, today's the Tuesday show, and this is what our goals are. This is the Thursday. Like, we're breaking this down. I have no idea what this episode is, or how long it's going to go, or what we're covering. But like, there was no way I couldn't hit live and talk to you about what is happening. What? Hold on. So Elizabeth Ryan, this is why I don't try to pronounce her last name, let alone her first name, but someone to take seriously for sure when it comes to knowledge of lore. So today, the EoM involved in the previous attacks went to Kala and bombed a planet led by Alar Chakaid. The Vanguard from Tanu was there, the Bastards from Tirjif was there, the Moros is, yeah. Guess who wasn't? Oh, the guy from the Shining Flame. Yeah, so this is an interesting thing that that she's pointing out, which is also noted, which is that they've confirmed 3 of the attacks were connected to EoM, but the Amar attack on Flossiswin, which doesn't match the pattern in several key ways, didn't get confirmed as being part of all of this. Which, of course, obviously you would kind of assume that might be true, because Chakaid was the warlord that was like involved with Flossiswin before this. And so the idea that like they would attack Flossiswin at this time, like of course Chakaid would be involved in that too. But then that leads some interesting questions, which is like, well, is this proof that Sorum is actually connected to this somehow? If the door that this opens is that if the EoM have been infiltrating these organizations for at least a decade, and this arc we can prove that this specific arc of the storyline started over 3 years ago, then a lot of the events that have happened involving Chakaid, Floswin, and all these sorts of things are brought, we have to look at them in the new light, that Chakaid very likely has always been an Artichoper sympathizer, a member of the Equilibrium of Man, and just acting as a Khanid religious leader, which makes sense because the Artichoper are historically some of the most fanatically religious of all of the Amar. And Sorum, being the most militant, has strong connections to the Order of Saint Tetramon, who originally imprisoned Chakaid. And the Order of Saint Tetramon also has connections to the Khanid Kingdom, as the Order of Saint Tetramon saw a refuge in Khanid Kingdom, which they returned to being legal within Amar only because of Jamil, and this happened right before Jamil's death, and it was controversial that the Order of Saint Tetramon was allowed back into the Empire, and that Khanid was allowed to go through the trial, the succession trial, chance to become emperor, given the fact that Khanid had seceded from the Amar effectively by turning into their own kingdom 200 years ago, when King Khanid had refused to sacrifice himself when he lost the ascension trials. Whatever, words are suddenly eluding me. Stanley Parable is such Stanley Parable narrator. That's kind of a cool idea. I do love the Stanley Parable. Anywho, so let's talk about what happened today. What happened today? Hold on, let me pull this up. World news. Yeah, I didn't actually get there on time, unfortunately. All right. Oh, let's get. Oh, no, not that one. Let's grab this. Move it down here. Crank it down a little bit. Okay, so let's look at the reports today. So basically, this was the first event. Wait, actually, we need to go back one, because it actually started with this. So this morning began with this announcement that the Mimitar Republic presents inter-council evidence from EoM Doomsday Cult behind Dreadnought attacks. This was the surprise Pikachu of the week. Anybody who'd paid attention to Hobo Leaks kind of knew what was going on, but this is actually a pretty big twist, and I was concerned that this was only going to be like, why would you throw in the EoM at the last second on this plot that you've been building up for like years? And the answer is they've secretly been seeding the fact that the EoM, it was EoM all along. No, I'm not going to sing it again for now, but that's a big deal. And I think that this is a key piece to the plot that is going to go forward. This is clearly like a keystone plot twist that will, launch into quite a bit of momentum. So we'll have to be watching how this goes. Yeah, that is an interesting question. Who's behind the EoM, right? Well, EoM are historically an Amar enemy, Amar rat type that is like in their missions. And they're kind of famous for being Amar ships, but using shields and railguns. I need to get my couch back. It's in the other room at the moment. The problem is that if I use it a lot while I'm actually gaming, it hurts my back because I have a back injury from the military. So it's only when I'm able to like sit back and just be chatting for a while. But either way, I digress. Oh, it's fine. What the military is all about, hurting people. Nah, just kidding. Anyway, so one of the things I really like about this article is the comment that Kaiten Yun, because Kaiten Yun should be the same dude from, he's been ambassador for Mimitar to the Concord. Gashkas, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, which is online. Kaiten Yun is the ambassador to Mimitar that first showed up in Empyrean Age. In fact, if I Google his name, I think E-Fiction. Here we go, Kaiten Yun. So he was appointed to be the ambassador to Concord and at the very beginning of Empyrean Age, and he basically functioned as the main go-between between the Mimitar government and kind of the rest of the well, he actually was effectively became the ambassador of the Elder Fleet. If all of this is very confusing to you, I recommend reading the Empyrean Age, because that's what this is all the story of. But so this guy, who is a significant character there, and he's also significant because you know how I say greetings fellow Empyreans all the time. The word Empyrean actually comes from the idea that the Empyrean is the highest heavens. It starts with EMPYR, etc., not Empyrean, like not imperial or part of the Imperium, but Empyreans. And that is a direct reference to the highest heaven. So it means angels, basically. And so Kaiten Yun went before the Mimitar, or went before Concord, and said in his opening speech to them that truly the Capsuleers are the Empyreans of our age, that we are the spirits that fly in the heavens and will bring forth stuff. CCP Convict, thank you so much for that subscription, man. That is very cool of you, coming in 4 months in a row. Love you, man. And you did a great job today on your stream, dude. I know how rough that stuff can be. Let's celebrate CCP Convict, his contributions to our community, and thank you for his support by showing us your clades. Yeah, CCP Convict, he ran the Project Discovery conversation today, which was really cool. It's funny because like even somebody in the chat tried to like make fun of it. It's like, oh, big brain people, EVE players, pick one. And I'm like, dude, of all of the insults to call EVE community members, like calling us not smart isn't I don't feel like that sticks pretty good, but bro. So I'm so proud of what we've done with Project Discovery. Not me. I mean, like I've done a few, but like collectively as a community, we did a huge amount of effort, a huge amount of hours of work. And the cool thing is that like this, unlike the other ones, it really seems like this data set and this kind of task as Project Discovery is something that we can be ongoingly helpful to these guys. The thing that I picked out of that the most was, unlike the other Project Discoveries, we haven't completed the data set and now we're just reviewing the data. Like this has huge, profound, and ongoing implications on health and human sciences, and it's directly pointed to our real efforts. And the other question that came out of that I wanted to bring to mind was that the developer was asked, like, what do you say about all those guys that say, oh, we're just doing bots? Hey! Glorification of the fit, mortification of the unfit. Large Quave 0, you, sir, are glorified. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for that raid. That is awesome. Everybody who was here that hasn't so far, go back and make sure to go back and follow. I almost said subscribe because YouTube is on the brain, but subscribe if you want to. He's a good dude. Follow Quaif, Large Quaif. Kicky McFace, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Steve Online. But what I thought was really interesting was the question, like, well, what do you say about all of those guys that, like, I just wrote a bot or whatever. Hold on. Oh, boy. Nth Dimensional. Captain Crunchers, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, which is Steve Online. And Nth Dimensional coming in with his Prime Gaming sub. Thank you so much for that. And Proxy Tricks, thank you for your follow as well. Let's celebrate Nth Dimensional getting all of the well, not all of the corporations, but many of the corporations involved in the Precursor Crisis: SOE, SOCT, Thucker, Concord, and many others, including the Convocation of Empyreans, Arataka Research Consortium, and I don't even, we have even more than that, I'm sure. Edencom and the Triglavians, and of course, all three Triglavian clades. And how do we celebrate new subs? By showing us your clades!
Immortal.
Hey, Maldavius. No, Maldravis. Thank you for joining us. And Malkavian. Shaiparo. All you people. AK Joy. Proxy Tricks. I think I said that one already. At any rate, can I skip these? No? Okay. That's work. And sometimes Jupiter. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Steve Online. I think I'm just going to keep it muted for now, just because there's so many follows. I don't want the entire stream to just be follows all day. So, oh, hey man, you can hate trigs, dude. Like the convocation, like I was interested in the trigs during invasions, predominantly because I was interested in the act of making change within Eve. So I absolutely support all sides of that particular engagement. You follow your drive, my friend. That's why we have Edencom logos over here too. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. In the live stream, one of the questions that was brought up was about what about bad faith actors, the guys who claim that, like, oh, they're just gonna bot the Project Discovery. And you could tell that one of the guys, Ryan, who's clearly my favorite of the crew, just was like falling over himself as soon as the question was even being asked. And I was actually expecting the response to be more about like, yeah, if you could do this, if you could write a bot for it, then it's great. You should be doing it for like millions of dollars and a Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize in Science, not doing it for some ISK. But instead, it was just, you're an asshole, and it was true because like the data that the bot person isn't trying to make something accurate. He's just trying to make something that qualifies for the tolerances of the Project Discovery program. And so it's just flooding it with data. And so the point is that, like, yeah, we can deal with it, but it's just a pain in the butt. And this is real life science. So you're screwing over real life science for the sake of some ISK. Good job, you jerk. So moral of the story is do Project Discovery. It's a great thing, and actually give a crap when you do, because it's a good way to earn some side ISK, and it's a good way to help out us for realsies. Back to the lore. So, I'll point out a few things already about today that I've gone over, but basically one of the biggest keys about today's attack is that this location, which is Kaha 3, was the same location as the original Deathglow rebellion in 2018, in which Khanid warlord Chakaid was originally, kind of started. He had existed since 2015, but in 2018, this arc started with the attacks on the Blood Raiders on specifically mostly Khanid territories using the Deathglow. This was one of the first sites. This was the site that Chakaid really cracked down on, and the Khanid were criticized for. And Chakaid is the same guy who, during that, I think that same cycle, was known for, like, when people were insulting him on the forums, it was their helm systems that were the next system to get attacked. It happened to Arcia, and I happened to at least one other person. Like, the next lore event was that those players as declared home systems or whatever was the next one to get firebombed. So this has been this really interesting upcoming or developing story with Chakaid. Chakaid was also really integral in Flossiswin. He was the warlord that was the terrible guy doing terrible things on Flossiswin and holding the city before it fell. He was the guy who threatened the Black Daggers. He's the guy who disappeared during the attack on Flossiswin last, I think, August. He showed up in the Saint Tetramon prison facility in September, October, and then was ordered to be moved to the religious judge group of the Amar. So many different names are bouncing around my head right now. The Theology Council. So the Theology Council declared jurisdiction and had him moved into Kador region to a system called Ilix, which is on last Tuesday, which was the first dread attack in Tanu. Just before the Tanu attack, there was a second assault by the Brooder Vanguard on that prison facility, killing the paladins, and Chakaid has been missing ever since. Yep, the Avatar dropped Black Daggers as an item, and the Dreadnoughts in the Flossiswin attacks also had Black Daggers, but as was pointed out, it is possible that the Flossiswin attacks are not credited to EoM in the same way. It's very, very possible that Sorum used this opportunity to attack in Flossiswin because it appears as if that attack is part of a larger effort. Do we know who picked up the artifact? I don't know what you mean by the artifact, but if you mean like the loot that was dropped, I don't know exactly from there. Hold on. Here's Alar Chakaid's Titan. We have a Black Dagger. What I love is that one of my favorite pieces of all of this is that he lost his pod, right? And his pod has a set of genos in, but it's missing one of them. And his fit, he had a Geno 4 in his cargo. So I think that the actual pilot failed to install his Geno 4, and instead it dropped, which is pretty funny. It also, yeah, I heard that there was like somebody got didn't Nth Dimensional say that he got something? So it's possible. But also, I mean, like, the cool thing is that it says that the Mimitar are the ones that presented the evidence in cooperation with loyal Mimitar and allied Galente Capsulators. So I believe what this means is that the data items up until this point has been turned into the Mimitar and the Galente leadership. Awesome. So yeah, Nth Dimensional has 2 of the encrypted datas. So that's really cool. How is a Titan in HiSec? These are Empire forces, or at least ostensibly Empire forces. Also, that's part of the whole puzzle, which is that these Titans, or well, these capitals really, are using a new item that was introduced. Let me see if I can find it. This killboard is going to be nuts for a little while. Hold on. There it is. It'll just look for the first thing. So this is a HiSec authorized mobile sinusoidal beacon. And so this means that somehow EoM has hacked effectively the network, and in order to allow them to create their own sinos which are normally only allowed by the empires themselves. This is key to the event that's going to start probably tomorrow, in which there will be both combat sites in which we raid their shipyards that they've been using to build these dreads, as well as hacking their Sino systems. So if we go to Hobo Leaks, if we look at what they added in, you get, let me see where it is. EoM, EoM, EoM. Yeah, this facility, so EoM Sino Network Spoofing Facility. This facility is key to the EoM's diabolical plans. It is critical to maintaining their illicit access to core Empire Sino networks and Sino jamming bypass technology. Let me make this bigger. Boom. So there's going to be these Sino networks to hack. And then there's also, not that, these stolen factory outposts. Oh, EoM stolen Sino beacon. This stolen Sino beacon is used by the Equilibrium of Mankind to move their capital ships around New Eden under the noses of the core empires. It can only function within Empire-controlled space because EoM has hacked into the Sino networks. So it looks like this event is only going to be happening in high-sec or maybe high-sec and low-sec. The Equilibrium of Mankind have stolen or otherwise acquired this factory outpost and appear to be using it to construct vast quantities of equipment or capital ships and support fleets. They are using as part of a plan to inflict massive destruction on the core empires. The constant activity of the automated factory lines is a testament to the investment the EoM have poured into their scheme to pit the empires against one another. I don't actually know whether or not it's going to be high-sec only, but this particular site appears to be a high-sec only site. So it could be possible, like, who knows? It's very possible that, like, the capital shipyards are in nullsec constellations or nullsec areas while the hacking area, or this particular hacking site, is in highsec areas. We don't know yet. But this does seem to be an empire-focused place. So a fortified capital shipyard primarily used to supply, repair, and make ready operational EoM dreadnoughts and new assault operations. The EoM road capital shipyards are primary targets for initial assault operations, but the defenses of these shipyard facilities must be dropped before demolition attacks is possible. Yeah, so you come here, you have to attack it, it's fortified, and then it becomes vulnerable. The road capital shipyard defenses appear to have lowered and is now vulnerable. The capital shipyard. So basically, you warp in, there'll be this thing will be there, but you won't be able to shoot it yet. You'll have to fight the other guys, whatever's there, and then eventually it'll go vulnerable and you'll be able to blow it up. The Black Dagger is a lore item. Yeah, it is meaningful because of lore, to the history of the Amar and the Mimitar. I think this foreshadowing a faction warfare update. I think faction warfare is a little bit ahead of us. So what I really see happening is, okay, so let's talk about what is happening after the EoM update. So this EoM event is going to be combat and hacking. We will know more of the details of this tomorrow for sure. But there's another piece to this that's important, which is Gate. This right here. Welcome to Stargate Trailblazer. So Stargate Trailblazer is a joint initiative from the empires to build gates. We have the Stain system to Tash Murkon. For the Glente, we know we have the Gate to Solitude. We've already heard about that. We don't have the Mimitar, and we don't have the Caldari. Capsuleers are requested to defend and mine mining expeditions, important, in the surrounding systems where the Stargates are being built. All previous access restrictions have been removed by the empires to ensure that Capsuleers of any allegiance can assist in building these Stargates to reunite the empires and build a bright future. So I don't know whether or not this all access restrictions means standings and ship restrictions, but there were some pretty significant ship restrictions in the old Resource Wars sites. So this is now called mining expeditions. Cool. So we've got mining expeditions. Let's look at mining expeditions. There's some strings related to that. Destroying NPCs within mining expeditions. Mining a certain amount of ore within mining expeditions. Giving it to the Orca in mining expeditions. and gold rank, getting the rank of gold, silver, or bronze in mining expeditions. This means that and it even says major critical federal mining expeditions. So these are the old Resource Wars sites. So it looks like they're putting the old Resource Wars sites in, and the completion of the Resource Wars is going to be how we advance the progress of building these various stargates. But the twist of this is, I believe that since these stargates are going to be mostly in low-sec, the areas around where they will be, which is these Resource Wars sites, will also be in low-sec or potentially null-sec, which means players that do not want these stargates to exist will be actively incentivized to disrupt the efforts of those trying to build it, which is why it's going to be very important to pay attention to what kind of ship restrictions are actually evident in these sites, because it'll be very interesting to find out when the player base decides. Sandbox Paragon, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole of online. When the player base decides, should we have a gate to stain, should we have a connected solitude, I think that that's a really cool thing. So this is a big thing that I expect to come up. With the EoM thing, I do not see EoM skins coming from that, although it might be. And he knows everything. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, which is online. But what I did notice, if I go back up to the top, so there's actually a lot of Capsuleer Day skins. So chances are the Apotheosis, Synesis, Gnosis, Praxis skins, all of these are very likely just given to us as login events. That's very common for Capsuleer Day. We also could potentially be given a free Apotheosis, Synesis, Gnosis, or Praxis. This is the event, Capsuleer Day is when they do this. If we're going to be given one this year, this is basically one of the events that they do that for. These other ones, Crucifier, Guardian, Griffin, Mollis, Basilisk, Vigil, Scimitar, Capsule, I believe that those are going to be the reward track for the completion of these EoM sites and the accumulation of points for doing this track. It really seems like the EoM event and the Capsuleer Day event is basically being tied together. Those skins are some of the best looking skins ever. Are you talking about these new Capsuleer Day skins? Do you think the EoM sites will compare to the Aegis sites? I don't think the Aegis sites are connected at all. I think that the Aegis sites are part of a different effort, and we'll have to see how that plays out. I think that that's very early. We have no strings connected to any of them, for example. So, like, we have no notion of what kind of site it might be part of. I just recommend keeping an eye on fortresses. Let's see here. You keep talking about the thing. Keep talking about the thing. I'm going to go check it out. Oopsie. I'm in right now. Oh, what have I done? Capsuleer Day skin. It looks good. It looks pretty similar to a lot of the other Capsuleer Day skins. Oh, there's a Rockwall Capsuleer Day skin? I missed that one. Where's the capsule? I mean, it's good. It's no Aurora Universalis. I mean, I think that so, like, I think that this gate thing is a clear sign that they're learning, like, some lessons from what worked and what didn't work with invasions. The problem with the idea of it being a foregone conclusion, like, the idea that you would manage to stop 27 or however many systems would be the bare minimum systems from being captured within that period of time was unreasonable. But I wouldn't necessarily call it scripted. But in this case, we have 4 different sites. Everything's concentrated in these very four particular areas, and these like people know very, very clear ahead of time what's at stake, right? Like people didn't know that Poshvin was going to happen when they were fighting for it. Otherwise, I think that people would have, maybe certain people would have made different decisions. So the idea that like, I'll put it this way: the Solitude folks are not going to let this happen if there's any mechanism that allows them to avoid it from being built. They're going to try to make it avoid it from being built. And by the same token, the Stain Gate is going to be the meme fight of the ages. I really believe that CCP is experimenting with the very idea of what motivates us, what do we fight for, and how can our actions reflect on the nature of the universe. When it comes to the idea that Poshvin would have been prevented, I don't know. I don't really like to think about whether or not it was possible versus not possible. I think it was very unlikely and unexpected to be avoided, even by anybody at CCP. But at the same time, the details of it very much so was shaped by us. You know, we weren't told, you will be the ones that decide whether or not the stars change. No, we were told that we will have an effect on a star-spanning conflict, and that promise was granted. So I think that CCP delivered on what it was, and I think that the problem was it was the communication of that was failed. There wasn't enough recognition of the efforts, especially like a follow-up of an understanding or subsequent goals by EdenCom or communication. And I mean by lore actors, recognition. And it was just too easy to feel like you were a failure, even though literally twice as many systems were fortressed than went liminal. Like, you can't knock that. Jay the Vet, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole with EoM Online. Well, it's going to be like faction warfare, right? Because they're going to be in a certain area, so you'll be able to disrupt it, or you'll be able to prevent the disruption. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. People are going to park dreads in the mining sites. Well, that's the thing. Like, it depends on what they allow in the mining sites, because it used to be like the lowest level mining site is like ventures only, like ventures and T1 frigates. And even like you didn't even get mining barges until you got to the third tier of these things. So depending on what they mean by removed all restrictions, will depend. And also just the idea of like trying to navigate a capital into one of these things in order to stop an event that is basically 7 to 9 minutes long, and we'll just move on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Like, that's not practical. You're going to need to have quick ships and go run around and try to disrupt things. It's basically going to be like faction warfare, but with a mining component in the site capturing process. No. The Orca is an NPC. So the way the site works is that there's these lots of these rocks, and the rock is, this is the skin that's coming tomorrow. The rocks in the site have actually very little minerals, so even like half a cycle with a venture is enough to deplete a rock completely. And then there is an Orca. That would definitely fall under extreme mining. There's an Orca, and so basically your job is to mine a certain amount of the rocks and put it in the Orca, and then the Orca warps off and you complete the site. And the faster you complete the site, you get either credited bronze, silver, or gold, which gives you a payout. No, not quite like the ice mining event, because that was a static site, I believe. This was literally resource wars. This was a thing for technically years, but wasn't even in the agency for half of that time. What about safety? What do you mean? Like the organization, or how do you secure yourself? That's a good question. How do you secure yourself? Oh, yeah. You're right. There was that event where you had to mine it, and then you had to turn it in to that NPC in the site. So yeah, very similar to that. In fact, chances are they're testing, because they took Resource Wars offline about 6 months ago with the statement that they were going to bring it back in a, reimagined or whatever. And it really feels like this is probably what they meant by that. Yeah, I think that the EoM sites are going to be very, very similar to the last couple of events, probably. Azidi, how's it going? Unafraid Cookie, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Steve Online.
Immortal.
Here, let me do this. I think I can find... Yes. Okay, so... Pandemic Beard, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Steve Online. If I pop up the browser again. So here is a video that me and Pockets DK, the founder of Mauro, made. This was us doing Resource Wars together. He was the DPS. Actually, I don't remember who was who. Because, oh yeah, Pockets was the miner. I was the DPS. And so, we go into the site, and basically, there's better visuals. So, I don't know why it's all foggy right now. Either way. So there's rocks within the site that you're mining, and there's rats that come in. So you can have combat pilots that are fighting the rats, which I assume now will also potentially be players that have ships that are correctly sized for the place. And then there is, as I said earlier, there's also actually allied rats that come in. But you can see the orca over here, the blue guy there is the thing that you deposit the rocks into. And so there was a lot of like Standy 1338. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Chief Online. Yeah, you could get the volatile skins, and we're not talking about that because that's what killed Resource Wars. That was literally the only reason why it was bad. Sleepy Dread, or Peaches Ulani and Sleepy Dread. Andy, thank you for joining us. Muted again, just because I don't want it to be all that. Okay, so, this was pretty cool. But, again, the reward was we're just going to say, really bad, and just leave it at that for now. And it made it so that nobody wanted to do this. So it is worth noting that in the files, in the skins, there's a whole set of new Navy skins being put in. So I actually think that that's the new Resource Wars reward, which is that we'll be able to get Navy skins for stuff. And I think God help us if they make the same mistake a second time. Yeah, this is back when we were fed up, man. This was originally, this right here, Resource Wars, was the original idea behind Mauro. We were going to do Resource Wars, which is a public thing. And so when we run into other people doing Resource Wars, we would recruit them. And that's how we would get people to come and be part of Mauro. And we would sell the skins to Ader, which would then use it for RP purposes or whatever. And it'd be fine. But because it was volatile skins that couldn't be traded, we couldn't do that. So ultimately, I just got to be bitter about it for a few years. So, but if you put this as a thing where completion on these sites completes the gates, but players could come in and potentially disrupt them, then that gives reasons for players to bring in security forces and reason for players to come and bring in conflict. And this is potentially a pretty incredible conflict driver, as again, the the point of this conflict isn't just because we want to fight, but it's, hey, should there be a low set gate to Stain? Should Solitude remain separate? And I think that having the thing that we fight over is the fabric of the universe itself is just super, super cool. So, okay, again, just to make sure to circle back on what we talked about earlier, today's lore event with Chakaid shows that for the last 3 years, CCP has been building up a plot line of betrayal and who the hell knows what, in which the equilibrium of man have been infiltrating and what's the word? Like gaining power within all kinds of different organizations, including mercenary organizations over the last upwards of 10 years. And, oh, good. Now it's easier to see the rocks. And that has culminated in exposing that the warlord Chakaid, a very significant lore figure within the last 5 years of story, is in fact secretly an Equilibrium of Mankind member. And the Equilibrium of Mankind are going to be opening the gates of paradise, which seems to be some sort of threat of destroying us all. So a new Equilibrium of Man event begins tomorrow, in which we go after their rogue capital shipyards and their Sino beacons and try to stop their efforts on behalf of the empires for Capsuleer Day as we lead into the Foundations quadrant. And the thing is that, as I said before this, when we knew it was Equilibrium of Mankind, but we didn't know all the details, these wounds that were picked at were still real, and the tensions that existed were still real prior to the Equilibrium of Mankind causing these quote-unquote false flag attacks. So it is very possible that even if we do stop the actual attempts by the Equilibrium of Mankind to destroy everybody, this does not bode well for the future of the four empires, and we are still continuing to hurtle towards all-out war. I founded FedUp. I was the commander of FedUp for a long time. I retired from FedUp when they joined Legacy. I stopped being able to be as active in the game and was defaulting more and more to the Admiral, who was ex-Meta, our ally. Aderon Robotics, I was the CEO at the time. So the FedUp was created by Aderon and ex-Meta. We had control over Fleet and a good industry thing going on and good connections, good lasting, whatever. This was when the war zone was burning. But I couldn't keep a military commander to save my life. And meanwhile, ex-Meta represented a very powerful military group, but with everybody else kind of falling apart, they were interested in making a stand with us, and that's how FedUp started. But then after the war zone got boring and I stopped being able to play as much, I defaulted leadership over to them. They went to Nullsec, and then by the time they went to Imperium, I moved over to Mauro, which was originally created, as you can see, as our recruitment program for FedUp. But Aderon Robotics has now moved back to the war zone, left FedUp. And we haven't really been associated too closely, although I am friends with the dudes that lead it still. Anywho, so this is Resource Wars, and you can see, hold on, I'm going to go back real quick. You can see once it's completed, this is that piece that I was talking about the rank, right? So it tells, in this case, I got, does it say? Did I lie? Maybe I found it later. Like maybe I only got bronze or something like that, so it didn't count. But it does normally pop up there and tells you, like, because it is based on a timer. So how fast you do it is what you get the reward from. And like I said, there isn't enough ore for even a full cycle. So knowing when to shut off your cycle and start a new cycle, when to burn over to the Orca and put it in, all that kind of stuff, you have to really practice to edge those seconds off in order to get Resource Wars done. But either way. Yeah, you're part of our fleet. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Our Fleet was another big group that joined us in the early days, and they were, if I remember correctly, Our was the ones that focused a lot on our attrition builds, newbie-friendly builds, and newbie-friendly fleets, which I really appreciated. Anywho, yeah, so some of those new EoM rats are labeled as irregular. Irregular means an event rat. All event rats are irregular, blah, blah, blah. In fact, if you go back to like the faction, if you go back to like the Caristus event, you'll see that the capsules that you scanned were irregular capsules. Irregular just mean, like, if you think about it, that's what they've always called event rats. So irregular rats are things that don't happen all the time, and events were kind of the thing that doesn't happen all the time. So I believe that that's why they're called that. So yeah, this is a big thing. Like in the original day, you had to gain new standings in order to unlock levels. So this is what I think they're doing. So that way, like, you could do any of the tiers of areas. I wonder whether or not they're still going to have the ship restrictions in the different tiers, because I think that's going to make attacking those areas far more interesting, because you can't just bring in like something crazy into one of these sites. You could only bring in, like a Tech 1 cruiser or Tech 1, a frigate into the Novice, or the cruiser, just like Faction Warfare. Plug Zug, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Steve Online. Oh, all right, that's enough of that. Let's see. All right, so there's so much going on, man. I was supposed to do 2 interviews, and I had to tell both of the CSM interviews, sorry, I can't do it right now. We're going to reschedule, and so we'll have to see how things work out when it comes to getting videos out. And then on Saturday, I'm getting my second COVID shot, so hopefully that works out all right. But whew, this has been keeping me going. But I love it, man. It's like, oh, I thought I was going to have a tough time figuring out what to talk about, and here I am putting out like 3 hours of videos a day. Let's see. Is there anything else I should talk about? Otherwise, I think I might be able to wrap this up. Maybe. Any other questions? What's up with Aegis? So Aegis is a department of Concord. So Aegis, basically, Aegis is a department of Concord that is more focused on like ground troops most of the time. They're actually originally formed to deal with ship hijacking. But during the invasion campaign, or story arc, the head of Aegis, Kashia Valkanir, told us that the Case Red Gamma, which is the Drifter Triglavian threat, was transferred from Sorrow, which is like their secret Black Ops research division, to Aegis. And thus, the invasion operation was now falling, and all information about the Triglavians were now to be addressed to her, Kashia Valkanir. And then, of course, during the Triglavian invasions, Kashia Valkanir showed up quite a few times, and about halfway through it, Aegis proceeded to form EdenCom, which is New Eden Common Defense Initiative. So under the command of Aegis, the 4 empires sent their own navies to make a combined navy for the use of defending space against the Triglavians. So that is what EdenCom is. But within EdenCom is Aegis. Aegis is the Concord division that basically forms that is the leadership of Aegis, right? So one of the interesting things about all of this stuff being branded as Aegis is that if all of this politics is tearing apart the empires and causing the navies to have to pull in their own forces, then it's we could possibly see Edencom be dissolved, leaving only Aegis behind, which is why you would now see an Aegis Gunstar and Aegis equipment, because it's not Edencom anymore. Bobus2010, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, GZ Online. Also, Eve Tear, just in case I didn't miss that before. I thought you already was a follower. Flugzug, thank you guys so much. Make sure to also head over to my YouTube channel, though, and sub there with ring the bell, all that stuff. Super helpful. Will they turn into Aegis systems instead of Eden? No idea, man. Like, they've hinted since the beginning that there's a lot more to this whole Edencom story arc than they've let on, and clearly a lot of things have been waiting for this trigger point. I've been saying this for over a year. Chakaid showing up in a Titan and doomsdaying a planet is a pretty good indicator that if we're not at that trigger point, we're really, really close. I don't know, man. A lot of the Edencom players, or the former Edencom loyalists, are now calling for the dissolving of Edencom because they're so pissed off because of their lack of reward. But, there's also a lot of indications that a lot of this, like Concord, Edencom stuff is an Amar intelligence plot to spot a spy, or to get Amarian intelligence agents deep into Mimitar territory, but whatever. Yep. The observatory flashpoint sites are now an announced exploit. Just yesterday, Maldavius and I were talking about that and saying that CCP needed to just announce that as an exploit and call it a day. And lo and behold, this morning, CCP announces it, it's an exploit, and calls it a day. I love it. Shadanar, I got your back. Taken care of. Although it does seem noteworthy that CCP seems to be like, Edencom's like, we're pissed off because you abandoned us and screwed us over for all of our hard work, and like, if we feel tricked into doing work for you and feel screwed over by our lack of reward. And CCP's like, you're right. That wasn't very fair. We should also screw over the Triglavians and make them feel like their standings grants was also a waste of time. And here we are. So basically the exploit was that allegedly players were positioning themselves where they knew that the flashpoint spawns. And so at the beginning of the day it would log in that location. And if there's a player on the grid, then the dungeon spawner can't complete its task. And so by holding the guy on grid the entire day and basically cloaky camping that particular spot, you prevent that site from spawning at all, which sucks because that site is supposed to be able to be completed and then gone back into the cycle and then recycled through. There's always 3 sites, and so closing one opens another one. So being able to take 2 of them out, for example, for an entire day makes it very difficult. It makes it very difficult to be running that content. And unlike other forms of disruption or taxing or anything like that, this is basically like, I don't like what you're doing in the game, so I'm going to break the game. And that's not cool. That's not okay. Like, if there was a legitimate trick, then that's fine. But this is literally them exploiting a mechanic of the way that dungeons are spawned. And CCP clearly has said, knock it off. Yeah, pretty douche move is a pretty, yeah, and that was an important thing about, like, both of the interviews, both the interview with the guy, the tax guy from last week, and Maldavius yesterday, was to really show the fact that like, both sides had a point, right? Like, what the tax man was doing was valid, but there was exploitive behavior happening in conjunction with that needed to be addressed and pointed out, and being able to say, like, this part is an exploit, but this part is just good emergent interference, I think was critical to that discussion. And so I was glad to be able to navigate through that as part of the show. CCP doesn't care about faction warfare. I really don't think that that's true. Faction warfare exploit, the HiSec. I'm not sure exactly what exploit you're referring to. Where can I find the interview? My YouTube channel. Yep. We actually ended up not doing the formal CSM interview because I didn't want to, like, the CSM interview is a very structured thing for 1 hour, but Maldavius had a lot to say about this stuff, and it just so happened that his CSM campaign was directly tied to all of the this Poshvin announcement and all that stuff. So we did get a chance to sit down with him for like 2 hours. Yeah, it looks like I had a few drop frames, but not too bad. Well, Mimitar, this next quadrant actually gets the most love from the looks of things, because they said that they're expanding Tribal Liberation Day. So we're going to be learning more about all of the different tribes, and players are going to be allowed to compete on behalf of one tribe versus the others during that event this summer. So I'm pretty happy about that. I gotta say, guys, I'm tired. It has been this has been a lot. There's a lot going on. We have a lot more to happen, and Mimitar ships get buffed. Hopefully, I don't know. I think that if you look at the meta right now, you'll notice that Mimitar are pretty well represented. Mimitar and Mimitar derivatives, i.e. angels. There's quite a few Mimitar ships that are incredibly strong at the moment. You get new and stronger duct tape called flex tape. Exactly. All right. I am going to find somebody to raid. I think that was all. That's about all I needed to talk about today. And I will recoup and come back to you tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Actually, no promises because it's Thursday. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be trying to figure out how this event works. So we'll see. Watch my Twitter. Definitely will be here by Friday because we have the Friday show to get to. So Friday, if not before then. I think I have at least one interview tomorrow, and I should try to reschedule some more interviews. Thank you guys. I've been Ashterothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put Eve into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you all for coming and checking this out. Thank you for the raids from... oh no, I'm going to scroll it back and not be able to get it, but it was Nth Dimensional and... Oh, I think there was 2 or 3. Oh boy. There's so many follow... Oh, Large Quaif 0. Nth Dimensional.
Immortal.
There's several subs. Tons of follows. You guys were awesome. Way to reward me for going online. And I was just like, screw it. I need to go online for like an hour and at least talk about this stuff. And, you know, way to reward me for that. I really do appreciate it, guys. It was pretty awesome. Oh, Corvus is on. Speaking of faction warfare, we're going to do that. We're going to go for Corvus. He's a good dude. Hopefully he's not about to go offline. Until next time, I've been Ashterothi, and I see you in space.
Bring on the wrecking machine. every city.